Hello and welcome to this masterclass. Happy, healthy, successful and productive. We are going to be looking at how you can begin to thrive in both your personal life and your work life. This masterclass is for you, whether you are managing a group of people, a team, a company, or simply managing yourself. My name's Maria Kay. I'm a coach, trainer, speaker and author, and I've spent the better part of 2 decades researching, teaching and writing about success. I've implemented my findings in both mine and my clients' lives and businesses, and it didn't necessarily all happen in that order. Often we research through experience. We gain clarity through experience. And one of the biggest pieces of clarity that I have found around this topic is that success is both an art and a science. Each formula, system, theory, proven results and continuing theme that I've discovered has always come up as depending on one massive variable, and that is the individual person, the individual circumstance, the individual organization. No amount of personality typing or categorizing can make up for these nuances and these fluctuations. And so it is with this big truth in mind, the one that states that no two people are the same, no two situations, no two goals, targets, or problems carry the same details, that I bring to you a simple set of pointers to get you started on your journey towards a happy, healthy, successful and productive journey moving forward. I'd like today's class to be an experiential one for you. I believe that we learn and absorb the most when we are interacting with the information that we are being given. And so this journey, the one towards your growth, your development and accessing your peak potential, whether in your personal life, in service of a better professional life, or whether you're heading a group of people or a team, or as I said previously, a company. This journey will consist of a series of facilitated steps where I will encourage and guide you firstly into deep exploration of both the things that are clearly seen by you currently, but also the more elusive aspects of the situation. Secondly, we will couple these facts, these findings, with a big dose of radical honesty about it all. This courageous honesty will help to form a unique and fail-proof strategy for your progression and your growth in your chosen areas. Thriving is going to mean something completely different. It's going to feel and look very different for you, for your team or organization compared to the next person or the next team or the next organization. And so this is not a generic set of rules or a step-by-step of do's and don'ts. This is a facilitated process where you get to sit in a state of radical honesty as you dive in, explore, discover, state and claim in service of radically upgrading what currently is to a space of thriving. Since today's masterclass is to provide you with a brief overview of these processes, we are going to focus on 3 main areas. The first area is discovery and clarity. This is a phase of exploration. This is a phase where we gather any and all pieces of information that are going to be helpful for us as we move forward towards the goals and the outcomes that we desire. Often we are given these pieces of information as we kind of trudge through a situation that is either problematic, yielding unsatisfactory results, or causing us pain and struggle. And we can see very clearly that and feel very experientially that we do not like what is currently happening. So that is what I call gathering by default. As we go along, we're being fed with these important pieces of information. Very often, though, because we are so caught up or busy or intent on getting from A to B, we miss the signs. And we can also get very accustomed to being and feeling uncomfortable. We can also decide to enter into this phase of discovery and clarity in a more controlled manner, a more deliberate, systematized way of collecting and analyzing data. Whichever way we approach this phase, I want you to know that getting clear pieces of information regarding what currently isn't working and bringing them up into the light, into awareness, and to actually begin to acknowledge and discuss what's happening is the cornerstone of any change, any successful upgrade, any positive transformation. And so start, first of all, by committing to this. Whether you have been quite aware of what's been going on, but haven't had the time or the energy even to look at it, or whether you are completely in the dark as to the reasons behind why things are not working. Whichever way it is, your first step is to start with committing to proceed with honesty and a willingness to tell the truth. Often we avoid doing this because it can feel as though by admitting what hasn't worked, by admitting where we haven't perhaps gone full out or showed up in a way that we know that we could, it's also like admitting a weakness, a failure, a mistake. When it comes to thriving, creating health, happiness, productivity in any area of life or work, there really is no space for guilt, shame, blame, or regret. Our power, your power, exists right now in this moment. And that's why I say it requires honesty and courage. It requires telling the truth. And that isn't always easy. But we have to take out the emotion and look at it as if we're analysing a bunch of data, a bunch of numbers, a bunch of figures. It bears no reflection on what you have done right or wrong. It's just simply acknowledging something, stating what needs to change, and then taking the necessary steps to do it. Of course, there is so much more to it than that. But in case you're feeling some avoidance, in case you're feeling some aversion to this initial process, then hopefully these insights will help. It can sometimes feel arduous. It can sometimes feel unsettling to explore beneath the surface in this way. no matter what surface you're going beneath, whether it's something that is related to you and your personal life, your health and your well-being, your relationships, or whether it's something practical in the workplace. Whatever it might be, please know that the mind can play devious little tricks on us when we start to lean towards some kind of improvement. So often our discomfort can stem from the mind simply trying to do its job. That's what it's there for, to keep you safe. And if you start to veer towards thoughts, exploration, and really looking at what isn't working with a view to rising up or raising the standard of something, whether it's personal to you or in conjunction with your workspace, then the mind can start to create drama and unnecessary situations to divert you back to square one. And nobody likes being back at square one, right? And so I'm going to leave you with 2 tools that you can implement for this phase. The first one is to begin to focus on mindset training activities. Anything that you can focus on through thought, through your attention, that will assist in raising the quality of the activity in your mind, both in a conscious and unconscious manner. So unconscious thoughts are the ones that run on a loop, day in, day out, that generally we are not aware of. And the conscious thoughts are the ones that we can identify quite quickly. A great place to start with regards to unearthing our unconscious thoughts is in our feelings. If we're feeling afraid, if we're feeling confused, if we're feeling overwhelmed, then the quickest route to understanding why that's happening is to link back to the thoughts and vice versa. So it's like this double-edged sword. And so checking in with the feeling, linking it to the thought, and then, of course, setting about rewiring the thought. Tool number 2 is to employ the amazing potency of power questions. Power questions cut straight to the point. They focus our mind and attention on, first of all, what's not working, what we don't like, but instantly shifts us into a solution-seeking mindset. So here are some examples for you. What is critical to resolve at present? What is critical to resolve at present? And so we've got the word critical, we've got the word what. So we are instantly looking at what currently is, but in conjunction with that, we've got the word resolve. And that's a powerful forward-moving word. It connects instantly to the solution, which is what we want. Another question is, if this were different, how would I like it to be? If this were different, how would I like it to be? So taking the situation at hand into consideration and allowing ourselves to state how we desire it to be. Now, it could come from a place of desire, purely a feeling place of desire. It can also come from a more practical standpoint of how do we need these figures to look by the end of the fiscal quarter or the fiscal year. And again, we are steering the mind away from, oh, it's scary to look at this, oh, it's unsafe to focus on that, oh, what if? We're steering the mind away from the drama and into the solution to begin to focus on how we would like things to be. Another power question is, what do I know but have yet to openly admit to myself? What do I know but have yet to openly admit to myself? This question can be a direct route to not only unblocking the way for things to transform and change, but it can also be a direct route to inner freedom. Because when we know but haven't acknowledged something, it sits beneath the surface and it causes low-level stress and anxiety, distraction. All of those things deplete our energy. And so then health and happiness, productivity, all of those things start to become hindered. And so to recap, discovery and clarity. Exploring beneath the surface will not always be comfortable, but if we can train our mind to support us in the process, keep telling ourselves that it is safe, we haven't done anything wrong by pinpointing what needs to change, and use powerful questions. I've given you a few examples, but there are as many power questions as there are people on the planet. Feel into the ones that will work for you and your situation and write things down. Getting things down on paper can allow for the emptying and the easing of the weight on the mind and the shoulders. Before we move on to the next phase, I want to make a point that will hopefully assist and support you throughout this process. Even though I have set out these phases in a particular order, they may not come up in that order for you. It may not make any sense to your current situation. Quite often, in order to gain clarity, we must first take some kind of action. We must first dive in and implement a theory or an idea so that we can then gather the information from the outcomes and the results that we are seeing, bring them back to the drawing board, and then go from there. That being said, our next phase is instigate and manage change. Without action, anything that we discover, any clarity that we have, any idea or plan is simply that, just a good idea, just a good plan, just some clarity about something. And so the next step is all about putting things into action. Change, even desired change though, is the creation of something new, a shift from something known to usually something that is unknown. Even if we know, even if we've stated that we want it and we've done our research and we know that we want it or we say that we want it, it's still the same kind of mystery because we haven't yet fully immersed ourselves in it. And of course, anything unknown can create discomfort before we get there and while we are stepping into it. And although as human beings we love variety, we like to feel the satisfaction of achievement and productivity, don't you? How amazing do you feel when you've had a wonderfully productive day? We love it. We thrive on achievement. But we also tend to love the comfort of safety and security much more. We like to know what's going on. We like to know what's going to happen and when it's going to happen. And while we are programmed naturally to seek out more and better, because we are evolutionary beings by nature, we are born to evolve, we are born to progress, we are born to upgrade. All of this means that we can often find ourselves in massive conflict and stress and deterioration during times of transition and change. Familiarity is where we feel most happy, usually. Even if what we're moving away from or stepping out of has elements of unpleasantness, or it's not working, or it's not serving the greater desires or goals, we can still have a yearning for it because it's familiar, It's like that child's comfort blanket that it carries around with it, or it needs to get to sleep with, or that favourite soft toy. And so once we have identified what we are going to drop or change or transform or rewire, once we have designed our unique strategy, we must also begin to look closely at where our particular pain points might be, whether they are our personal pain points or the pain points of the bigger picture, the team, the company, the organization. And so we've decided what we want, what we're going for, what's going to change, but we must also look at anything that lays beneath the surface that could inadvertently create that hook and pull us back into old ways and old patterns. It takes time to analyze old patterns, previous scenarios and outcomes, not just from the obvious standpoints, but since this is a whole new way of approaching this, we're looking for clues about weak spots that maybe you haven't ever dared to look at before. We're approaching this from a holistic standpoint. So as well as looking at obvious things like time management and budget issues, we're also looking at below par mental, emotional, or physical health. The mental, emotional, and physical health of everybody involved in this. We're also looking at perhaps a wobbly company culture, rocky relationships within a group of people, the way that people communicate, the way that you're communicating with yourself, emotional intelligence. We're looking at things that, as I said, are not really very obvious. And it can often require, as I've already mentioned, the action phase to get fully underway for all of these pieces of information and clarity to rise to the surface. Because this is a people-orientated activity, and it's not something that we can analyze with a litmus test or a Bunsen burner and a set of test tubes, it is often a simple case of action, 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 intermingled with a ton of observation, observation, observation. Very often it doesn't seem logical to do it that way. And it may not apply to your situation, but I will always recommend moments throughout the day or the week or the month or especially the year where you sit back and you take massive stock of what is working and what isn't working. And this type of analysis cannot be done in advance. It needs to be done in the trenches, during the process, during the show, where you sit back, you observe, you soak it all up, and you get really honest, very much like the discovery and clarity phase, with what's working, what isn't working, and why. We always want to look at why. And so as we instigate the plan, as we look to managing change, which is one of the hardest things to do for ourselves as individuals, but also as a group, we can set about course correcting before things go too far in the direction that isn't desirable or that won't be working. And so the two takeaway tools that I have for you in this phase is, of course, one of the most obvious, and that is to instigate a strategy. From the first phase of discovering and getting clear, you will create a strategy, whether it's short-term or long-term. And that then needs to be instigated. It needs to be put into action. And from that phase of actioning, the next tool is constant recalibration from constant observation. So a constant check-in, and that's something that you, if it's something to do with you on an individual personal level, you can do on a moment by moment basis. Is this working? How is this working? How could this be different? How could this be better? Again, bringing in those powerful questions. And the same would apply if we are dealing with a large group of people. And there will be various strategies that you can employ accordingly. Whatever you choose, the end result is always going to be an information gathering exercise. So we're constantly throughout this whole process from start to finish, tapping into the truth moment by moment, because as I said in the introduction, we are constantly in flux. Situations are constantly in flux. We are constantly seeking to balance the equilibrium, to rebalance, to recalibrate. And we cannot do that unless we have a clear idea of what is currently going on, what is currently in existence. And the overarching theme of this phase and all the phases really is a constant willingness to look beneath the surface, because while we are managing change on a ground level, as I have already said, the obvious changes and the challenges that they can bring up. So, for example, systems and processes, a new way of doing something, a merger perhaps, which are going to bring up obvious issues and obstacles. But as with everything, things are never what they seem on the surface. And so each obstacle will be formed of different layers and levels. And this is where I'd like to invite your attention, because things are never what they seem. There's always more than meets the eye. And it's that willingness to go that one step further to explore the real route. And the real route may be highly connected with what's going on the surface. There is always room for more clarity and more clarity. And so I recommend that you have this in mind, that as well as spending time analysing the obvious, you must also dedicate time to looking at the more elusive and unobvious elements of what it means to be not just human, but also in business, in a team, in a process of evolution, success, and change. Happy, healthy, successful, and productive. How hard can it be, right? And it doesn't have to be, as long as we remain aware of all the variables. We have access to a ton of resources around what it takes to create this level of thriving in both personal and professional arenas. The next phase is build and strengthen. So we've already looked at getting clear on what needs to change. We've looked at the truth that implementing a plan for positive change isn't always easy. It goes a lot deeper than just saying, that's what I want and doing it. And so this next phase is almost like the safeguarding phase, because as we build, as we continue to piece by piece put together the building blocks of the desired outcome, like any structure that is being erected, there is likely to be some unexpected issues along the way. So this phase, once again, is just as much about building and strengthening the tangible physical outcomes that we are desiring, such as increased sales, improvements in customer service, increased output in any given time, putting out a new product, anything that we associate with actual work. So it's just as important to look at all of that as it is building and strengthening from the inside out, as I like to say, and doing so with endeavours that might to some seem like a frivolous waste of time or resources. Activities such as coaching, mentoring, activities that promote emotional, mental and physical health and well-being, activities that engage in safeguarding against any potential weak spots. Another way I like to put this is, and I've written about this in my book, is directly related upgrade actions, ones that are obvious to the mind's eye that if you do this, it's going to lead to that. And then the indirectly related upgrade actions, the ones where you need to think about it a little bit more. It doesn't really make clear sense, not until you've started to engage in said activity. Until you've experienced it for yourself, it may not make sense. But we're looking in this phase at building and strengthening not only from the outside, but also from the inside. Because as I keep saying, as individuals, we form the building blocks of any company, any organization, any firm that has more than one person. The potential for any organization to thrive is directly related to the potential of an individual thriving, the happiness, health and productivity of the people who form the backbone of it. If the spine is weak, then so is the rest of the body. Since we're looking at success and productivity alongside happiness and health, we have to begin to look at what that means for us as individuals and also for the people that we are facilitating. Health and wellness, in my experience and opinion, is the foundation for everything. And so we must, if we want to ensure that we are building in a way that is desirable, whatever the goals may be, we have to make health and wellness, both emotional and physical and mental, a big priority. By doing so, we're not only doing a good thing for our own health or wellness and that of the people that we're working with, but we are also ensuring that people are happy and healthy. When people are happy and healthy, what happens? Just think about it with yourself. Your productivity improves. Your ability to withstand uncertainty, your resilience to power through an obstacle, to get back up after a failure, increases beyond imagination. And so investing time in health and wellness, mental health, emotional health, and physical health is a wise move. It's as old as the hills, that it's not a new approach, but it has been forgotten. And so if this is hitting a nerve with you personally, if you've been skimping on taking care of yourself, if perhaps you're seeing that certain demands that have been in place at work with the people that you lead have been a little bit too extreme, then this is a call out, really. This is an invitation to everyone, all of us, because we all can take care of ourselves a little bit better. And this doesn't have to eat into huge amounts of time each week. There are simple, fun, easy, playful approaches that we can take to factor in these important activities into each day. Thriving on the outside cannot happen unless there is thriving happening on the inside. And so once we have the basics in place, like sleep and nutrition, nourishment, movement, positive mindset, dealing with emotional baggage, the list is endless. We can then move to adopting what I call success strategies. There's a ton of them in my book. We won't go into them all today. But when we are feeling energized and centered and well rested, and even if we're not well rested on any given day, we know that we can recalibrate because we have the tools, we have the knowledge, we have the understanding on how to take care of ourselves. We can then move into taking our performance and our productivity to another level. I know it sounds cliche, but very often we try to reach too high before we've got a stable, firm grounding. And as we build and as we strengthen and as we implement the plan, as we go through change, as we recalibrate and excavate and all of the things that we've gone through so far in today's class, there will never be a moment where we will not need some kind of motivation or encouragement, some guidance, some support. Now, the great scenario is when we can self-motivate and self-govern, and that will definitely come from us, from somebody who is feeling energized and fulfilled and happy. But in my opinion, one of the most powerful tools to ensure continuous evolution and growth, progress and success is to have something or someone that we can plug into so that we can recharge regularly. Just the same way that we would plug our phone in to recharge at the end of the day, or probably several times a day, depending on what phone you have, it is the same for us human beings. And so the two tools that I will leave you with for this phase is, firstly, to be aware of the value of flexibility. Learning to be, of course, rigid with the goal, rigid with the outcome, yet flexible in the execution of the plan or strategy, and working with the natural grain of what can sometimes be volatile and the unpredictable nature of life, people, and business can alleviate the tendency for stress. So it can reduce stress levels, which then instantly can improve morale. And also this leaves space for the nuances, the cycles and the seasons that govern literally everything. All you have to do is look out of your window at this moment to get a sense of how cyclical our world is, and you are part of that world. So tool number one, flexibility. Tool number two is support. We are not supposed to do this alone. You are not supposed to do this alone. One of my favorite sayings is, the eye cannot see the eye. And if you really focus on trying to see your eye, unless you're looking in a mirror, you cannot do that. And so when we can have systems or people in our space, in our life or in our workspace that can provide us with, number one, support and guidance, and number two, that mirror that will help us to see where we are not showing up, to see where we can improve, to see perhaps where we've misconstrued things a little bit. For anyone to reach their potential, as well as all of the foundational steps that we have discussed today, we need to be reminded regularly of how truly wonderful and capable they are. So whether you are listening today to implement your own transformation towards happy, healthy, successful and productive, or whether you are listening with a group of people, a team or an organization in mind, the final takeaway, the big one of all, is happy, healthy, successful and productive individuals and organizations have a team of people behind them, helping to uplift, to reflect back, to guide, support, and motivate them. The road to your happy, healthy, successful, and productive, thriving existence is right ahead of you. And although there will most likely be twists and turns along the way, with willingness, honesty, courage, strength, strategy, support, and resilience, there is absolutely no way that you can fail. And so how can you thrive moving forward in life and at work? Well, that's for you to explore, develop, and grow into. But one thing I do promise you is that it's possible if you are willing to try a new approach.